Hello, we are students at the University of South Alabama and are in Dr. Strange's EDM 310 class. We are Sarah Kinney, Stephanie Gomillion, Barclay Davis, and Jeanette Kelly. For this podcast assignment, we will be discussing the prologue, chapters 1 through 4, and the epilogue from the book Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire, The Methods of Madness Inside Room 56 by Rafe Esquith.
Rafe Esquith is a fifth-grade teacher in a not-so-glamorous classroom in central Los Angeles. Rafe is an open-minded, honest man trying to impact the lives of young children. Rafe explains that one day during a science experiment, he was helping a young girl light her alcohol lamp. Finally, getting the stubborn lamp to light, expecting the girl to smile, the entire class screams in fear. Unbeknown to him, he had inadvertently caught his hair on fire, giving us the meaning behind the name of the book. He explains that if we could only teach everything as if our hair is on fire and did not notice it, perhaps our students would excel at greater heights.
Everyone knows that keeping order in a classroom is a difficult task to handle. In Chapter 1, Rafe Esquith talks about the way a lot of classrooms are being run these days. He then goes on to discuss different ways we can make the classroom a better place. He starts off Chapter 1 by telling us a story of a student named Alex. Alex was humiliated by his teacher because of how unorganized his backpack was. After telling us about this story, Rafe Esquith then goes on to explain that a lot of teachers use one thing and one thing only to run their classrooms: fear. Fear is something teachers turn to when they feel as if they have lost control of their classrooms. Children don't respond to fear the way teachers want them to, and they end up losing respect for the teacher, and ultimately they don't learn. Rafe then goes on to tell us that there are 4 things he does to ensure his class remains a place of academic excellence without having to resort to fear. The first thing Rafe does in Room 56 is replace fear with trust. He does this by explaining to his students on the first day that his classroom is based on trust. He then gives an example of a trust fall and tells us that even if the person is supposed to catch you lets you fall once, then your trust is broken forever. He then tells us his class is much like a trust fall, and if you break his trust, it's irreparable. Rafe says that his students are proud of the trust he gives them, and they don't want to lose it. He ends this section by telling us that positive and patient response to questions builds an immediate and lasting trust that transcends fear. The second thing Rafe does is be a dependable teacher. One of the worst things a parent or teacher can do is promise a child something and then never deliver on that promise. Rafe says that if a teacher isn't dependable, then the students will lose respect for him or her. Breaking a promise to a child at such a young age not only makes them lose respect for that individual, but it can damage the trust they have in all adults. Rafe says that the best thing about gaining the trust of a child is that if there is an occasion when a promise must be postponed, then the child will be much more understanding. The third thing Rafe promotes in his classroom is logical discipline. He starts this section off by saying, children don't mind a tough teacher, but they despise an unfair one. Once a student has seen a teacher be unfair, then the teacher has lost the child for good. Punishing an entire class for one child's misbehavior is an unjust punishment. In Rafe's class, he strives to make his activities so exciting that the worst punishment the students can endure is not participating. He allows the misbehaving child to stay in the classroom during the activity so that the child can still learn, but they just can't participate. The final thing that is promoted in Room 56 is being a great role model. The biggest thing to remember about this is that children are always watching you. Children are like sponges and they mimic things that people do all the time. Teachers should do their best to promote the best in their students. A quote that Rafe said that really stuck out to me was, if we ask great things of our children, we must show them we believe great things are possible.
Chapter 2, Searching for Level 6. Rafe says if your classroom foundation is solid with trust, fairness, and dependable, then you're able to develop classroom culture. All teachers want to be able to have is a behaving classroom. Sometimes teachers don't find a decent way until they have years of experience. Rafe mentions he found his way while reading a study guide that analyzed the characters from To Kill a Mockingbird. It used Lawrence Kohlberg's 6 levels of moral development. Rafe was no ordinary academic teacher. He also wanted to educate his students on life and how to become better people. These 6 levels were just what he had been looking for. Level 1, I don't want to get in trouble. At this level, students have fear of getting in trouble if they do something wrong. Typically, young, inexperienced teachers fuel this type of thinking by putting fear into their students to behave. Rafe says we can do better. Level 2, I want a reward. Many teachers and parents believe if students and children are rewarded for good behavior, they'll do it again. Also, this leads educators to think the students will like them more. This is another level young, inexperienced teachers use. While sometimes this is acceptable, you don't want children to think they must be rewarded for behavior that is expected. He says we can do better. Level 3, I want to please somebody. As kids grow up, they learn to do things to please people. When kids want to please you, it gives your ego a jolt, says Rafe. While this is a good and dandy thing, children should learn to please themselves, not only teachers and students. He says we can do better. Level 4, I follow the rules. When teachers post rules, students should understand why that rule is in place. Once students understand why that rule is in place, they are more likely to follow it. Rafe made an excellent point. The fact that different classes have different standards can actually be good. It teaches students to adjust to new situations and new environments, but he says we can do better. Level 5, I am considerate of other people. Children and adults should take heed to this level particularly. Once a person thinks of others and their point of view, the world becomes a happier place. Students' actions and behaviors change drastically in Rafe's class and all for the better. Once again, he says we can do better. Level 6, I have a personal code of behavior and I follow it. Rafe states this is the most difficult level to teach and learn because the personal code lies within someone's soul. It's like knowing someone close to you did a really good deed, but they don't feel the need to brag, boast, or gain special attention for it. They're just happy with themselves for doing it. Rafe uses the movie The Shawshank Redemption as an example. I've personally watched that movie a handful of times and it's touching. Rafe finally says, I don't think we can do better than this. If we as educators can learn from Rafe and his style of teaching these 6 levels of thinking, then I believe we too could have a classroom just like his. Not only would we be teaching academics, but we'd be teaching our students to gain morals as well.
Rafe talks about strategies that he used in his classroom to keep his surrounding students organized. He starts off by talking about different focuses. Most districts use a scripted beta readers to teach children. Most schools in the Los Angeles areas is focused on fluency, comprehension, and daily goals. Students should read because they love to read, and it should be a foundation of life. Children should also have a guidance. Teachers and parents should guide them to great books with life meanings. Rafe stated that reading nothing but beta readers often lead to a dead end. He also talks about students' needs to go to the library. They can browse and make discoveries that could not be found online. They would have more of a wide range of books at hand instead of waiting on them to come in the mail. They can see their peers read and they know they are not alone. He also focused on choosing correct literature for his students. He states that cult award-winning books are good for young readers. He mentioned never to give a child a book without covering its background and to guide the student with information leading up to the material. Students who cannot read have many problems. Rafe used a 2-pronged strategy to assist his students. First, he constantly explained the material to keep struggling students up to speed. Second, he has individual kids reading specific books that are associated with their particular reading level. Then, each month, the students will write reports on the book they chose. Middle and high school teachers should form book clubs according to Rafe. Just because the teacher teaches math, science, or history doesn't mean they shouldn't help their students with reading. Book clubs help students meet their peers and form bonds with their teachers or parents. There are many things the students can be tested on. Rafe finds this website, www.learninglinks.com, to be very helpful. It has a novelties supplement to reading. The website has study guides that go chapter by chapter and vocabulary lessons. They can also write essays and answer comprehension questions. Tools like these can help the students understand the material better. Mr. Rafe also makes things relevant for his students. The material, then going to an adaptation can also help the students understand what they are reading. Watching a movie or going to a play of a book they read helps them experience all materials. Students will also be able to connect to what they read. When a book is good and understandable, they can compare their life to the book they're reading. There is always going to be a time where the material connects to one of the students' life.
At the beginning of Rafe's teaching career in 1982, new grammar books were purchased and grammar was heavily emphasized in the school systems. However, gradually throughout Rafe's career, he saw the importance of grammar to the school board dwindling. Those same grammar books were used and never replaced for over 8 years. By 2004, a new Basel reading series was adopted and the way grammar was taught had been changed. The teachers were not thrilled with this change at all. They wanted to keep the old grammar teaching styles, but the school board refused it, even though reading scores dropped tremendously. However, in the eyes of the teachers, the school boards were not concerned. Rafe explained in Chapter 4 that writing can be one of the most difficult subjects to teach, not because the subject itself is hard, but because it engulfs so many aspects: spelling, grammar, and sentence structure, just to name a few. In many schools, writing is not a major part of the curriculum, even though it should be emphasized as much as any other subject. Rafe begins the students' school days with a grammar activity, meaning that even if they only cover grammar for that short 5 minutes a day, they are still using their grammar skills. The kids in Rafe's class are instructed to write weekly essays and monthly book reports. However, unlike most classes, the kids in Rafe's class know that they will not be ridiculed for something that they write, regardless of the subject. Yes, book reports and essays can be time-consuming for teachers, but they are so beneficial for the students. A young author's book is a year-long project given to the students, instructing them to write an entire book on anything they would like. Many of Rafe's students that have graduated high school and college still have their young author's book they wrote in the 5th grade. When a child writes a book, it not only lets them express everything they want, but it can also give them a boost in their confidence when given the right praises and critiques. Rafe continued to teach grammar the way he thought it should be taught through the ways of the books used in 1982. He is positively affecting children not only by the way he teaches grammar and writing, but through the way he teaches them to live their lives. These skills are being carried over into middle and high school and even into their careers. Rafe is teaching his kids that writing can be an escape from their real life or a way to let outsiders in to know what is going on in their lives. Ultimately, Rafe wants to teach his students that writing can be so many things and it can also be fun.
Teaching is a thankless job. You don't get paid a lot, the job doesn't get easier, many times you want to give up, and you'll have children that don't even want to be there. The government is constantly putting more strain and stress on your job to try and keep every child working at the same level at the same time, when the only ones who really see that's impossible are the teachers. Lots of days it will make you wonder why you chose this profession and if it's right for you. You think about the children that you have made a difference in their lives, and then there are the many other children that have given up because of the same forces that make you want to give up. When Rafe has struggling nights, he opens up one of his past students' essays, Janet's essay. She was one of his students when she was 13 years old. In her essay, she reminisces on being a student in Rafe's class, room 56. Jeanette told of her love for Shakespeare she had gained from Rafe, and how all the wonderful feelings from room 56 brought her. Janet learned a lot from Rafe, and now that she has grown up in his classroom, still has a special place in her heart for it. Room 56 was a place to go for shelter, comfort, love, and joy. Whenever she needed a place to retreat, she would go up there, and to this day, she admits she will still go there. Just when you think you can't teach anymore, you'll find the student that teaches you something and makes you realize why you teach. For those students you do get to inspire, it makes teaching all worth the while.